Hi, guys, and welcome back to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today, it's just me. Today, I want to talk to you about something that I've been experiencing since leaving my marriage, and that is secondary gaslighting. When I figured out that I had been in an abusive marriage, it was something that I wanted to share with others. I wanted to be understood, I wanted to be heard, I wanted it to be known what he did to me. And surprisingly, I had people who didn't believe me. And so today we're talking about secondary gaslighting. I want to thank Psych Central and Richard Grannon for this great info I'm going to share. So, secondary gaslighting is when victims of narcissistic abuse try to tell family or friends what happened, and then you're not believed. They can say things like, I know them, they would never do anything like that. Are you sure that's what happened to you? Now, do you really believe that's what happened? Or is that just your perception? Another thing that can happen that is secondary gaslighting is treating victims like it was just a bad marriage, a bad match, a bad breakup. Things like asking the victim to continually look within in the very first few weeks of recovery can cross the line into victim blaming. The victims of malignant narcissists have heard many variations of victim shaming statements, such as the following, even in the very beginning of their healing journey. You have to let it go. You need to move forward. You might be codependent. Let's talk about you, not him. Why did you stay so long? Let's explore that. That was one of the things that I was asked a few times was, why didn't you leave? And I always said that this, of course, was a long time ago, but I always said I would never be that person who stayed if my partner was abusing me until I was. The thing about narcissistic abuse is that it is so incremental that you hardly even know it's happening. The the abuse is so minimal, well, not minimal, but the abuse is so incremental that is just almost not known. And then when people don't believe you, it's hard to explain. Then you get into the trauma bond. So the trauma bond is this thing that's happening with that you are in love with your abuser. They are the person who's taking care of you and soothing you, but they are also abusing you. And so then there becomes a trauma bond. And that to me is so hard and strong, and it demands attention. This was not a normal breakup. The survivor at this point has gone through a great deal of gaslighting and needs to work through what the abuser has done to them before they move on to actions which actively support their healing. They need to connect to a vocabulary of the abuse they experienced. That is why they need to talk about their abuser first, to establish the tactics used and the effects of these tactics before even attempting to move forward in any tangible way. So, one of the things that I thought was very useful was when I realized that it was narcissistic abuse, that to me was very helpful because it helped me in my moving forward and my healing. So, it helped me to understand the things that were part of the abuse. Why did he move on so quickly? Why did immediately he have someone else? Well, because he's been grooming someone else. That is a narcissistic tactic. So if if I know that, it helps me in my healing to know that I wasn't just discarded for no reason. He can't be alone, and that's why he has someone new. So it's these kinds of things. It helps me in my healing to know that it's not about me, it's about the way they behave and the things that they do. The lies, the manipulation, and all those things that are happening that are incremental, that some days seemed really big, where I would be crying over something he's doing, And he would just be smirking and saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said that. I never did that. All those things. The mind fuckery is beyond belief. And that's really the only way that I can describe that. It's the most honest and maybe the most crass way to describe it, but it is such a mind blowing experience. I was in it for 33 years and I can barely believe it. So, when you're seeking help, be very careful to not go for marriage counseling. The National Domestic Violence Hotline actually advises against couples therapy because an abusive relationship has a severe power imbalance. In my experience, I had a professional therapist gaslight me as well. So when we went to marriage counseling, which here the National Domestic Violence Hotline says not to do, which I didn't know that because at the time I didn't know he was a narcissist. So we went to marriage counseling and he was very charming, and that is the thing, is they tend to be narcissists or sociopathic abusers tend to be very charming and can hook, dupe and manipulate even the most skilled of professionals. So you have to make sure that when you are seeking professional help that you get someone who is trained in complex PTSD. Of course, don't go to marriage counseling. And if you, when you decide to leave, then I suggest going to seek someone who can help you with complex PTSD because that's different than PTSD. And yes, you have been in a trauma. So, yes, you have PTSD. I have PTSD. That's why it's so hard for people to understand, I think. So, some professionals may gaslight you as well. Are you sure that happened that way? My therapist, our marriage counselor, told me he was very handsome. And what did I have to complain about? If they are not trained in complex PTSD or narcissism, the narcissist is going to get away with being charming and duping the professional. He just sat there with a smile on his face and she just asked me what the problem was because he told her that I was having a lot of problems and that I had some issues and I should probably go on meds. I don't know how many times we went to marriage counseling where he said I should probably go on meds. And frankly, by the last month of our marriage, I wanted to check myself into a mental health institution, or I didn't want to be alive anymore. Those are the two things that I considered at the end of our marriage. And I'm thankful that I had a therapist who helped me to decide to leave rather than not being in this world anymore. At the end of the day, all abusers have issues with their sense of entitlement, their need for control, and their stunning lack of empathy. Rather than focusing on the victim, it's time for society to wake up to the abusive nature of their perpetrators. I hope that this information was helpful to you about secondary gaslighting. It was really surprising to me to hear from very good friends and family members that they weren't quite sure what to think about what I was telling them. Maybe they didn't believe me. You know, that they may not say the words directly to you that they don't believe you, but some of the examples that I gave earlier gets into victim blaming, and that's not what victims need when they are trying to heal from abuse. Thank you so much for being here. If any of this resonated with you today, would you please leave a comment on social media, and would you leave a review on Apple Review and let Podcast Land know that you want to hear more content. I really thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you guys next time.